Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to explain the complete story of the newly released Chinese fantasy drama, Definitely Not the Dragon God. If you're looking for the full story but don't have time to watch all the episodes, then this video is perfect for you. We'll cover the entire journey from beginning to end, including every major twist, emotional moment, hidden secret, powerful battle, and shocking revelation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this complete drama explanation. And if you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next drama recap. Now, let's begin the complete story of Definitely Not the Dragon God. The story begins in a world where dragons are more than just mythical creatures. They are powerful beings that have shaped kingdoms, started wars, and created legends that have been passed down for centuries. Some dragons choose to fight alongside humans, forming lifelong bonds with skilled riders, while others remain hidden deep inside ancient mountains and forgotten valleys, refusing to trust mankind ever again. Throughout history, powerful dragon academies have been established to train talented young warriors who dream of becoming the greatest dragon masters in the world. Among all these institutions, the Dragon Academy is considered the most prestigious. Only the strongest, smartest, and wealthiest students are accepted there. Noble families send their children from every corner of the kingdom, hoping they will graduate with powerful dragons and bring honor to their bloodlines. However, hidden behind the Academy's glorious reputation is another side that very few people notice. There are servants who spend every day cleaning the halls, preparing meals, carrying supplies, and doing all the difficult work that keeps the Academy running. They are invisible in the eyes of the students. Most people never even learn their names. One of those forgotten servants is a quiet young man named Aries. Unlike the noble students surrounding him every day, Aries owns nothing except a few old clothes and a tiny room beneath the Academy kitchens. Since childhood, he has lived inside the Academy walls, but no one knows where he truly came from. The old caretaker who raised him always claimed that someone abandoned him near the Academy gate when he was only a baby. There were no letters, no family symbols, and no clues about his parents. The Academy simply allowed him to stay as long as he worked. As the years passed, Aries accepted that this was his destiny. Every morning before sunrise, he swept the Academy courtyards, polished dragon statues, washed dishes until his hands became rough, and delivered meals to students who rarely thanked him. Some of them didn't even look at his face. To them, he was nothing more than another servant. Life at the Academy is especially difficult because dragons behave strangely whenever Aries comes near them. The Academy houses dozens of dragons of different sizes and elements. Some breathe fire while others command ice, lightning, or powerful winds. Normally, these creatures remain calm around experienced trainers, but the moment Aries walks into the stable, everything changes. Even the bravest dragons suddenly become restless. Some grow nervous, others back away in fear, and a few release loud warning cries that echo across the entire Academy. Nobody understands why this happens. The instructors simply assume Aries brings bad luck. They forbid him from entering certain training grounds and constantly remind him that someone as ordinary as him should never dream about dragons. Every strange incident becomes another excuse to blame him. Because of this mysterious reaction, Aries becomes the target of endless bullying. Wealthy students laugh at him whenever they pass by. They throw dirty laundry onto the floor just to watch him clean it again. Some deliberately spill food across freshly polished hallways, forcing him to start over. Others enjoy mocking him by saying that even dragons hate him. Although the insults hurt deeply, Aries rarely argues back. Years of humiliation have taught him that silence is safer than fighting people who hold all the power. Deep inside, however, he secretly wishes that one day someone will see him as more than just a worthless servant. Among the students is a talented young woman named Lyra, one of the Academy's brightest dragon trainees. She comes from a respected family and has already earned the admiration of many teachers because of her intelligence and swordsmanship. Like most students, she barely notices Aries at first. Whenever he serves meals or cleans the training grounds, she walks past him without saying much. Yet unlike the cruel students who constantly insult him, she never joins their bullying. Occasionally, she even feels uncomfortable watching the others humiliate someone who has done nothing wrong. Although she doesn't interfere, a small part of her begins wondering why the dragons react so strangely whenever the quiet servant appears. The academy is ruled by a wise but mysterious headmaster whose calm expression hides countless secrets. Unlike the other instructors, he often watches Aries from a distance with an unreadable look in his eyes. Several times he notices the frightened reactions of the dragons, but instead of punishing Aries, he simply orders everyone to continue their work. His silence creates whispers among the senior teachers. Some believe the headmaster knows the truth about Aries but refuses to reveal it. Others suspect he is waiting for something that has not yet happened. Unknown to everyone else, the headmaster keeps an old locked book inside his private library. Hidden within its pages are ancient writings that describe a mysterious bloodline capable of changing the fate of dragons forever. One evening, while delivering food to the dragon sanctuary, Aries notices something unusual. In the deepest chamber of the academy rests an enormous black dragon egg displayed inside a magical barrier. According to legend, the egg has remained untouched for hundreds of years. Every generation of dragon masters has tried to awaken it, yet nothing has ever happened. Many believe the creature inside died long ago. Others claim it belongs to an ancient dragon whose power was so overwhelming that even death could not erase its presence. Students often visit the chamber hoping to witness a miracle, but they always leave disappointed. The silent egg never moves. As Aries quietly cleans the floor around the display, he cannot help staring at the mysterious egg. For reasons he cannot explain, he feels strangely drawn toward it. A faint warmth spreads through his chest, almost as if something inside the egg is calling to him. Before he can understand the feeling, one of the arrogant noble students storms into the chamber with several friends. They accuse Aries of wasting time and begin insulting him once again. Their leader deliberately pushes him to the ground, causing his cleaning bucket to spill across the floor. Laughter fills the room as Aries struggles to gather his supplies. None of them notice the dragon egg giving off the faintest pulse of light for only a brief second before becoming silent again. Later that night, unable to sleep, Aries sits alone outside the academy walls beneath a sky filled with countless stars. He wonders if his life will ever change or if he is destined to remain a forgotten servant forever. He remembers the countless dragons that fear him and the painful loneliness that has followed him since childhood. He has no family, no friends he can truly rely on, and no future beyond tomorrow's chores. Still, despite everything, he refuses to let hatred consume his heart. Instead, he quietly promises himself that no matter how cruel the world becomes, he will never treat others the way he has been treated. Unaware that ancient forces have already begun moving, Aries watches a shooting star race across the night sky. At that exact moment, hidden deep beneath the Dragon Academy, ancient magical seals begin to glow once again for the first time in centuries, signaling that a destiny long believed forgotten is finally awakening. The next morning begins like every other day, but Aries cannot shake the strange feeling that something has changed. The memory of the glowing dragon egg and the mysterious warmth in his chest stays with him from the moment he wakes. As he walks through the academy courtyard carrying buckets of water, he notices that the dragons seem even more restless than usual. Loud roars echo from the training grounds, and several experienced dragon riders struggle to calm their companions. Teachers assume the creatures are reacting to changing weather or magical disturbances, but none of them realize that every dragon's eyes briefly turn toward Aries as he passes. The feeling is almost impossible to explain. It is not simple fear. It is something much older, something buried deep within their instincts, as if they recognize a presence that should not exist in this age. The Academy prepares for one of its biggest annual ceremonies, known as the Dragon Resonance Trial. During this event, the kingdom's most gifted students attempt to form bonds with newly hatched dragons or strengthen their connections with existing ones. Nobles from across the land arrive to witness the ceremony, hoping to discover future heroes who may one day protect the kingdom. The entire academy is decorated with colorful banners, polished statues, and glowing magical crystals. Servants work from sunrise until late at night making sure everything is perfect, and Aries is assigned the hardest tasks as always. While other servants decorate the grand hall, he is ordered to clean the ancient dragon sanctuary where the legendary black egg rests. As he quietly wipes dust from the stone floor surrounding the magical barrier, Ares once again feels that invisible pull coming from the egg. This time the sensation is stronger. It feels almost like a heartbeat calling to another heartbeat. He slowly steps closer without thinking. The air around him grows unusually warm, and tiny streams of golden light begin swirling around the egg before disappearing again. Confused, Ares reaches out but stops just before touching the magical barrier. Suddenly, footsteps echo behind him. Startled, he quickly returns to his work before anyone notices his strange behavior. The visitors entering the sanctuary include several noble students led by the arrogant young warrior Kale, one of the Academy's strongest dragon riders. Kale has always enjoyed humiliating Ares because he believes servants should never raise their heads in front of nobles. Seeing Ares standing near the legendary egg immediately makes him furious. He accuses the servant of trying to steal attention during an important ceremony. Without listening to any explanation, Kale grabs Ares by the collar and throws him backward onto the cold stone floor. The other students laugh loudly while insulting him, calling him cursed and worthless. One even jokes that perhaps the dead dragon inside the egg is pretending to sleep because it cannot stand Ares' presence. Ares quietly apologizes even though he has done nothing wrong. Years of suffering have taught him that arguing only makes things worse. As he gathers his cleaning tools from the floor, one of the broken glass containers slices across his palm. A sharp pain shoots through his hand, but he barely reacts. A few drops of bright red blood fall onto the ancient stone before slowly rolling toward the magical barrier surrounding the dragon egg. At first, nothing happens. Then, to everyone's shock, the protective barrier suddenly flickers. The glowing shield that has remained stable for centuries ripples like water as the blood touches its surface. Before anyone can react, a single drop passes through the barrier and lands directly on the black dragon egg. For a few silent seconds, the entire sanctuary freezes. Then a deep rumbling sound shakes the chamber. Cracks of golden light spread across the surface of the egg like lightning racing through the night sky. Ancient runes carved into the surrounding walls begin glowing one after another. The massive dragon statues lining the sanctuary seem almost alive as dust falls from their ancient bodies. Every dragon across the academy releases powerful roars that shake the mountains. Students outside stop their training, staring toward the sanctuary in confusion. Teachers rush toward the building, sensing an enormous surge of magical energy unlike anything they have felt before. Inside the sanctuary, Kale and the others stumble backward in complete disbelief. They have spent years hearing stories about the legendary egg that never hatched, yet now it is clearly breaking apart before their eyes. Ares remains frozen where he stands, unable to understand what is happening. His injured hand begins glowing faintly as warm energy flows through his veins. Strange images flash inside his mind for only a moment. Towering dragons flying across burning skies, ancient warriors kneeling before a brilliant figure surrounded by golden flames, and a mysterious voice whispering words he cannot understand. The visions disappear as quickly as they arrived, leaving him dizzy and frightened. With one final thunderous crack, the dragon egg explodes into countless fragments of black crystal. A wave of brilliant golden light floods the sanctuary, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the light finally fades, complete silence fills the chamber. Sitting among the shattered shell is a tiny dragon unlike any creature the Academy has ever seen. Its scales shimmer with shifting shades of black and gold, glowing softly as if tiny stars are trapped beneath them. Two bright golden eyes slowly open before locking directly onto Ares. The little dragon studies him for several seconds without moving. Then, to everyone's complete astonishment, the baby dragon happily chirps and runs straight past every noble student, every powerful dragon rider, and every teacher entering the sanctuary. It leaps into Ares' arms as if it has known him forever. The little creature gently rubs its head against his chest before letting out a joyful cry that echoes through the chamber. At that exact moment, a glowing golden mark appears on Ares' wrist before fading beneath his skin. The ancient bond between dragon and master has formed instantly, without any ritual or ceremony. No one can believe what they are seeing. Kale's face turns pale with rage. The teachers exchange frightened looks. Several dragons outside the sanctuary suddenly kneel, lowering their heads toward the building. Even the Academy's oldest dragon, a creature that has served generations of headmasters, bows respectfully, as if acknowledging the birth of something far greater than itself. The headmaster slowly steps through the crowd and stares silently at Ares holding the newborn dragon. His calm expression finally cracks, revealing genuine shock for the first time in many years. Quietly, almost in a whisper that only he can hear, he says, "So, the prophecy has finally begun." Before anyone can ask what he means, the Academy's emergency bells begin ringing throughout the entire valley. Far beyond the Academy walls, hidden inside a dark fortress, an ancient crystal suddenly bursts into brilliant light. Cloaked figures gather around it in silence. Their leader slowly rises from his throne, staring at the glowing crystal with cold, emotionless eyes. After centuries of waiting, the bloodline they have hunted has finally revealed itself. Smiling for the first time in years, the mysterious ruler gives a single command to his followers. "Find the boy, and bring him to me alive." Chaos spreads across the Dragon Academy within minutes of the legendary egg hatching. Students who had gathered for the Dragon Resonance trial abandon the ceremony and rush toward the ancient sanctuary, desperate to witness the unbelievable event with their own eyes. Whispers travel through the crowd faster than wildfire. Some claim a forgotten Dragon King has returned. Others insist the Academy has been cursed. No one can understand how the servant they have mocked for years could possibly awaken the one dragon that had remained silent for centuries. Every pair of eyes eventually turns toward Ares, who still stands frozen in the center of the sanctuary with the tiny dragon resting peacefully in his arms. The little creature looks completely relaxed, almost as if it has finally found the person it has been searching for all its life. Whenever anyone besides Ares steps too close, however, the dragon lets out a low warning growl that immediately fills the room with invisible pressure. Even experienced dragon riders instinctively take a step backward. The Academy healers quickly examine Ares after noticing the strange golden mark that briefly appeared on his wrist. To their surprise, the deep cut on his hand has completely disappeared without leaving even a tiny scar. One elderly healer checks his pulse several times before looking toward the headmaster with confusion. "His wound healed in only a few moments," she whispers. "No ordinary human body can recover this quickly." Hearing those words causes another wave of uneasy murmurs among the teachers. Some begin wondering whether Ares has been hiding magical abilities all along. Others refuse to believe such nonsense, insisting the dragon itself must have healed him after forming the bond. Kale, however, cannot accept what has happened. His pride has suffered a crushing blow in front of the entire Academy. For years he has trained harder than anyone else, believing he was destined to become the kingdom's greatest dragon rider. Yet the legendary dragon ignored every noble, every gifted student, and every powerful warrior, choosing instead a servant everyone considered worthless. The humiliation burns inside him like fire. Unable to control his anger, Kale steps forward and points his sword directly at Ares. He accuses him of using forbidden magic to steal the dragon. According to Kale, someone without noble blood could never awaken such a legendary creature through honest means. Before Ares can even respond, the baby dragon suddenly spreads its tiny wings. A powerful burst of golden energy explodes through the sanctuary, knocking Kale several meters backward. His sword flies from his hand and crashes against the stone wall. The attack is surprisingly gentle considering the immense power behind it. It is almost as though the dragon intentionally chose not to hurt him seriously, merely warning him to stay away. The entire sanctuary falls silent once again. Everyone now realizes that the newborn dragon is protecting Ares with absolute loyalty. The headmaster immediately orders the students to leave the sanctuary and return to their dormitories. His voice remains calm, but there is an authority behind it that no one dares challenge. Teachers escort the protesting students outside, while guards seal the sanctuary entrance. Only the senior instructors, the Academy elders, and Ares remain inside. The baby dragon curls comfortably around Ares' shoulders, occasionally looking around the room with bright, curious eyes. It behaves less like a wild beast and more like a playful child exploring the world for the first time. Once the sanctuary is empty, the headmaster finally speaks directly to Aries. He asks gentle questions about what happened before the egg hatched. Aries honestly explains everything. He tells them about being pushed to the ground, accidentally cutting his hand, and watching a single drop of blood fall onto the egg. He also mentions the strange visions that flashed through his mind, though he cannot describe them clearly. The elders exchange worried glances. One of them quietly mutters that ancient bloodlines were believed to have disappeared hundreds of years ago. Another insists such stories are only myths created to frighten children. Yet deep down, none of them truly believe their own words anymore. Meanwhile, far away from the academy, hidden inside the Black Abyss Fortress, the mysterious organization that has secretly waited for centuries begins preparing for war. Their leader, a cold and ruthless man known only as Lord Varen, stands before an ancient altar where glowing symbols cover the floor. A cracked crystal floating above the altar has suddenly repaired itself after remaining broken for generations. Varen smiles faintly as he studies the crystal's light. According to the oldest prophecies, this could only mean one thing. The bloodline connected to the ancient dragon era has awakened once again. If left alive, that person could destroy everything his organization has spent centuries building. Without hesitation, he summons his strongest assassins. Their mission is simple: infiltrate the Dragon Academy, capture the boy alive if possible, and kill anyone who stands in the way. Back at the academy, life changes overnight for Aries. Instead of returning to his small servant's room beneath the kitchen, he is moved into a private chamber near the headmaster's office for his own protection. Guards stand outside the room day and night. Although they claim it is to keep him safe, Aries cannot help feeling like a prisoner. Everywhere he goes, people stare at him. Some servants suddenly begin treating him with unexpected respect, while others keep their distance, afraid of the strange dragon that never leaves his side. The little dragon quickly becomes attached to him, following him everywhere like a loyal companion. It happily climbs onto his shoulder, steals pieces of food from his plate, and curiously explores every corner of the room. Watching the playful creature makes Aries smile for what feels like the first time in years. Later that evening, Lyra quietly visits his room, carrying fresh bandages and food. She seems hesitant, unsure how to begin the conversation. After a long moment of silence, she finally apologizes, not because she ever bullied him herself, but because she never spoke up when others did. Aries is surprised by her honesty. Instead of blaming her, he simply smiles and says everyone deserves a chance to become better. His kindness catches Lyra completely off guard. She expected bitterness after everything he had endured, yet he holds no hatred in his heart. As they talk, the baby dragon carefully studies Lyra before gently nudging her hand with its nose. She laughs softly as the little creature happily accepts a piece of fruit from her. It is the first peaceful moment Aries has shared with another person in many years. Their conversation is interrupted by a loud explosion echoing from somewhere outside the academy walls. Moments later, alarm bells begin ringing once again. Flames rise into the night sky as terrified students rush across the courtyards. Guards shout orders while dragons roar from their stables. The academy is under attack. Cloaked figures dressed entirely in black leap over the outer walls with impossible speed, cutting through guards as if they were ordinary soldiers. Their movements are precise, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. Every one of them carries strange weapons engraved with ancient dragon symbols. Inside his office, the headmaster closes his eyes for a brief moment before looking toward the burning courtyard through the window. His worst fears have come true far sooner than expected. Turning toward Aries, he speaks with unusual urgency. Listen carefully. They are not here for the academy. They are here for you. From this moment on, your life will never be ordinary again. Before Aries can ask another question, the chamber doors explode inward with tremendous force. Smoke fills the room as a masked assassin slowly steps through the shattered entrance, his glowing crimson eyes locked directly onto Aries and the young dragon beside him. The shattered doors crashed onto the stone floor with a deafening roar, filling the room with thick clouds of dust and splintered wood. Before the smoke had a chance to settle, A tall masked assassin stepped calmly through the broken entrance as though nothing in the world could stop him. He wore jet-black armor covered with strange crimson symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness, and a long curved blade rested in his hand. His eyes were cold and emotionless, locked on Ares from the moment he entered. Behind him, several more assassins silently appeared in the hallway, defeating every academy guard who tried to block their path. It was obvious that these were not ordinary mercenaries. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, and every attack was clean, fast, and deadly. The academy, which had always felt like the safest place in the kingdom, had suddenly become a battlefield. For a brief second, Ares stood frozen. His heart pounded so hard that he could barely breathe. He had never fought anyone in his life. All he knew was how to clean floors, carry supplies, and survive another day of insults. Standing in front of trained killers felt impossible. Yet before fear could completely take over, the tiny dragon on his shoulder spread its wings and released a sharp cry. A warm golden light surrounded Ares, wrapping around him like an invisible shield. The lead assassin narrowed his eyes. "The bond has already formed," he muttered quietly. "We are too late." Without another word, he rushed forward at incredible speed. Just as the assassin's blade came within inches of Ares, another figure suddenly appeared between them. It was the headmaster. Raising only one hand, he blocked the glowing weapon with a barrier of pure blue magic. The impact sent a powerful shockwave through the room, cracking the walls and blowing out every candle. The headmaster's calm expression never changed, but his eyes carried a seriousness Ares had never seen before. "Take the boy and leave," he ordered Lyra, who had just arrived outside the office after hearing the explosion. "Do not stop. No matter what happens, get him out of the academy." Lyra hesitated for only a moment before grabbing Ares by the arm. "Come with me," she shouted. Still confused, Ares allowed himself to be pulled into the hallway while the baby dragon hurried after them. Behind them, the headmaster and the assassin unleashed another clash of magic so powerful that the entire corridor shook. Stone pillars cracked, windows shattered, and ancient paintings fell from the walls. Students screamed as teachers rushed to guide them toward underground shelters. Everywhere Ares looked, chaos had replaced the peaceful academy he had known his entire life. As Lyra led him through hidden corridors beneath the academy, she revealed something that surprised him. The Dragon Academy had been built over ancient tunnels created hundreds of years ago during the Great Dragon Wars. Most students never learned about them because only senior staff knew the secret passages. According to the headmaster, these tunnels connected to old escape routes leading deep into the surrounding mountains. If they could reach the forest beyond the valley, they might survive long enough to figure out why these mysterious enemies wanted Ares alive. The underground tunnels were dark, narrow, and silent except for the distant sounds of battle echoing above them. Old dragon carvings covered the walls, their eyes glowing faintly whenever Ares passed nearby. At first he assumed it was only his imagination, but the carvings seemed almost alive, as though they were watching him. The baby dragon suddenly stopped walking and stared at one particular mural. Curious, Ares stepped closer. The ancient artwork showed a majestic warrior standing beside an enormous dragon unlike any creature he had ever seen. The warrior's face had been damaged by time, but one detail remained perfectly clear. On the warrior's right wrist was the same mysterious symbol that had briefly appeared on Ares after the dragon hatched. A chill ran through his entire body. Before he could study the mural further, the ground began trembling violently. Dust rained from the ceiling as explosions echoed somewhere above them. One of the academy towers collapsed, sending a massive vibration through the tunnels. Lyra urged everyone to keep moving. "We'll come back if we survive," she said, although even she wasn't sure that would be possible anymore. Meanwhile, above ground, the battle grew more intense. Dragons soared through the smoke-filled sky, while instructors fought desperately to defend the academy. Fire dragons unleashed blazing torrents across the battlefield, while wind dragons created powerful storms that hurled attackers backward. Yet the invaders continued advancing with frightening determination. They carried strange black crystals capable of weakening dragon magic. Whenever one of those crystals shattered, nearby dragons became disoriented, allowing the assassins to strike with deadly precision. It was clear they had prepared for this attack over many years. Deep inside the fortress of the Shadow Order, Lord Varen calmly watched the battle through a magical mirror. The old man beside him asked whether destroying the academy was truly necessary just to capture one servant. Varen smiled coldly. That servant is not what he appears to be. If the ancient blood fully awakens, our centuries of planning will collapse. The dragons will remember, and once they remember, they will never obey us again. The old advisor lowered his head, understanding the danger. For generations, the Shadow Order had secretly manipulated kingdoms from the darkness. Everything depended on finding Ares before he discovered the truth about himself. Back inside the tunnels, Ares and Lyra finally reached a hidden stone gate covered with vines. Together they pushed against the ancient door until it slowly opened, revealing a dense forest beneath the moonlight. Fresh air rushed into the passage as they stepped outside. For the first time in years, Ares stood beyond the academy walls. The world stretched endlessly before him. Towering mountains, ancient forests, rushing rivers, and distant ruins hidden beneath the stars. It should have been a moment of freedom, yet instead it felt like the beginning of a nightmare. The baby dragon suddenly flew into the air, circling above the trees before releasing a loud warning cry. Seconds later, dozens of birds burst from the forest canopy, fleeing in every direction. Lyra instinctively drew her sword. Something was approaching. Dark figures emerged silently from between the trees, surrounding them from every side. Unlike the assassins who attacked the academy, these warriors wore long crimson cloaks embroidered with silver dragon symbols. Their leader removed his hood, revealing a scar across one side of his face and piercing gray eyes. Surprisingly, he did not attack immediately. Instead, he slowly knelt before Ares. "We have searched for you for 18 years, the stranger said respectfully. "The time has finally come to fulfill the promise we made to your parents." Ares stared at the man in complete disbelief. "My parents," he whispered. Before the stranger could answer, a black arrow shot out of the darkness at incredible speed. It pierced straight through the man's chest. His eyes widened in shock as blood stained his cloak. He collapsed onto the ground, while hidden enemies closed in from every direction. The forest erupted into chaos once again, and Ares realized that escaping the academy had only brought him into an even more dangerous world. The scar-faced warrior collapsed onto the forest floor before he could reveal another word. Blood spread across the fallen leaves as the black arrow remained lodged deep in his chest. His loyal companions immediately formed a protective circle around Ares and Lyra, drawing their weapons while scanning the darkness between the towering trees. The peaceful forest that had seemed like a place of escape only moments earlier was now filled with invisible danger. Not even the sound of insects could be heard anymore. Everything had fallen unnaturally silent. Ares stood frozen, unable to understand why complete strangers were risking their lives to protect him. More importantly, he could not stop thinking about the man's final words. For 18 years, they had been searching for him. They knew his parents. Every question he had carried since childhood suddenly returned with overwhelming force. The dying warrior struggled to breathe. Summoning the last of his strength, he grabbed Ares' wrist and looked directly into his eyes. "Do not trust everyone who claims to protect you," he whispered weakly. "Your father believed even his closest friends, and it destroyed everything." His voice became softer with every word. "Find the Temple of Dawn. The answers are waiting." Before Ares could ask another question, the warrior's hand slowly slipped away, and his eyes closed forever. A heavy silence filled the clearing. Even though Ares had never met the man before, guilt washed over him. Someone had just sacrificed his life because of him. A sharp whistle suddenly echoed through the trees. Almost instantly, dozens of arrows rained down from every direction. The remaining warriors reacted without hesitation, raising magical barriers while shouting for Ares and Lyra to run. The baby dragon released an angry roar far louder than its small body should have been capable of producing. A brilliant wave of golden fire burst from its mouth, creating a blazing wall between them and the hidden attackers. The flames illuminated dozens of black-cloaked assassins moving silently through the forest. Their faces remained hidden behind dark masks, but the crimson symbol of the Shadow Order glowed clearly on every chest. Lyra grabbed Ares once again, and together they sprinted deeper into the forest while the surviving warriors stayed behind to buy them time. The sounds of clashing swords, magical explosions, and desperate cries echoed behind them, growing fainter as they ran. Ares desperately wanted to help, but he knew he would only become another victim. He had no combat training and barely understood the mysterious powers everyone believed he possessed. All he could do was keep moving. The forest grew darker as they climbed a narrow mountain trail. Thick branches blocked the moonlight overhead, making it difficult to see more than a few steps ahead. The baby dragon flew above them, occasionally looking back toward the distant battlefield before urging them forward with anxious cries. Despite its young age, the little creature seemed surprisingly intelligent. Several times it stopped them just before hidden traps or unstable paths, almost as if it could sense danger long before it appeared. Hours passed before exhaustion finally forced them to stop near an abandoned stone shrine hidden beside a waterfall. The small building was old and covered in moss, its roof partially collapsed after centuries of neglect. Lyra carefully inspected the area before deciding it was safe enough to rest for a short while. Ares leaned against one of the ancient stone pillars, struggling to catch his breath. Everything had happened so quickly that his mind could barely process it. Only yesterday, he had been cleaning academy hallways. Now powerful organizations were hunting him, strangers were dying to protect him, and mysterious people claimed to know his parents. The baby dragon quietly walked over and rested its head on Ares' lap. As soon as he gently stroked its glowing scales, an unexpected warmth spread through his body. His racing heartbeat slowed, and the pain in his tired muscles gradually disappeared. Lyra watched the scene with amazement. She had studied dragons for years, yet she had never seen one capable of healing emotional and physical exhaustion simply through its presence. Whatever creature had hatched from the legendary egg, it clearly possessed abilities unlike any dragon recorded in the Academy's history. As dawn approached, Ares finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had haunted him all night. "Do you think the man was telling the truth about my parents?" Lyra remained silent for a moment before answering honestly. "I don't know," she admitted. "But one thing is certain. The headmaster kept secrets from everyone. He must have known something about you all these years." Ares lowered his head. Looking back, he remembered all the strange moments throughout his childhood. The headmaster had never treated him cruelly, even when others blamed him for every unusual incident involving dragons. Perhaps that kindness had never been an accident. Without warning, the baby dragon suddenly lifted its head and stared toward the old shrine. The glowing runes carved into the cracked stone walls began shining one after another. A deep humming sound echoed through the air. Curious, Ares stepped closer. As soon as his fingers touched one of the ancient symbols, golden light burst across the entire shrine. The walls trembled violently, and hidden mechanisms began moving beneath the stone floor. A circular platform slowly rose from the ground, revealing an ancient crystal covered with dust. The crystal reacted instantly to Ares' presence. Brilliant light swirled inside it before forming ghostly images in the air. A young man wearing silver armor appeared beside a beautiful woman dressed in white robes. They smiled warmly while holding a newborn baby wrapped in blue cloth. Ares felt his heart stop. He somehow knew, without anyone telling him, that the people standing before him were his parents. The vision was blurry, like an old memory fading with time, but the emotions felt unbelievably real. The man gently placed his hand on the baby's forehead. "If you are seeing this," the vision said, "then we have failed to keep you safe." His voice was calm but filled with sadness. "Our enemies will call you a monster. They will fear your blood because they do not understand its true purpose. Remember this, my son, your power was never meant to rule the world. It was meant to protect it." The woman's eyes filled with tears as she looked toward the child. "We wanted to stay with you," she whispered softly. "But if we had, they would have found you. Please forgive us." Before the vision could continue, the crystal suddenly cracked. A blast of dark energy shot through the shrine, shattering the magical image into countless fragments of light. At the same moment, an icy voice echoed from outside. "So, this is where the heir has been hiding." The entrance of the shrine darkened as a tall figure slowly stepped inside. Unlike the assassins they had faced before, this man wore elegant black robes instead of armor. A long sword rested calmly at his side, and a cruel smile spread across his face as he looked directly at Ares. "I have waited many years for this meeting," he said quietly. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is General Darius, and I was the one who killed your father." The moment General Darius finished speaking, the atmosphere inside the ancient shrine became unbearably heavy. Even the air itself seemed to freeze. Ares stared at the man in complete disbelief, unable to process the horrifying confession he had just heard. His father had only appeared before him through a magical vision moments earlier, and now the person claiming responsibility for his death stood calmly in front of him as though discussing an ordinary memory. Darius showed no regret. Instead, his expression carried the confidence of someone who believed history had been written in his favor. His long black cloak swayed gently as he stepped farther into the shrine, his sharp eyes carefully studying Ares from head to toe. When his gaze settled on the baby dragon standing protectively beside its master, a faint smile appeared on his face. "Just as I expected," he murmured. "The legendary hatchling chose you." Lyra instinctively moved in front of Ares, raising her sword despite knowing the difference in strength between them was enormous. She had never heard of Darius before joining the academy, but during her advanced history lessons, she had read about a mysterious commander whose name had been erased from official records after the Great Dragon Wars. Only fragments remained, describing him as a warrior capable of defeating entire dragon battalions by himself. Looking at the calm confidence in front of her now, she realized those stories had probably been true. "You won't touch him," Lyra declared, tightening her grip on the sword. Darius laughed quietly. Bravery without power is simply another form of foolishness. Before anyone could react, he disappeared. 1 second, he stood near the shrine entrance, and the next he appeared directly in front of Lyra. A single flick of his fingers sent a powerful shockwave crashing into her chest. She flew backward across the shrine, smashing through a stone pillar before collapsing onto the ground. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth as she struggled to breathe. "Lyra!" Ares shouted, rushing toward her. Before he could reach her, Darius blocked his path. The general looked into Ares' frightened eyes with strange curiosity rather than hatred. "Interesting," he said. "Your blood has awakened, yet your body remains that of an ordinary human. You haven't inherited your father's combat instincts." He slowly walked around Ares like a scholar examining a rare artifact. "Tell me, have you started hearing the voices yet?" Ares frowned in confusion. "What voices?" "The dragons," Darius replied calmly. "Soon they will begin calling to you. Every ancient dragon still sleeping beneath this world will recognize your existence. When that happens, kingdoms will burn trying to claim you." The baby dragon suddenly leaped between them, releasing a fierce roar. Golden flames exploded from its mouth, filling the shrine with brilliant light. The attack struck Darius directly, engulfing him in a pillar of fire powerful enough to melt stone. Ares watched hopefully, believing the battle might already be over. When the flames disappeared, Darius was still standing exactly where he had been. Not a single mark covered his clothes. He slowly brushed invisible dust from his shoulder before looking at the little dragon with mild amusement. "Impressive for a newborn," he admitted. "In another few years, that attack might actually trouble me." Without warning, he extended one hand. Invisible force wrapped around the baby dragon, lifting it helplessly into the air. The little creature struggled desperately, but it could not escape. Seeing his companion in danger awakened something inside Ares. A powerful heat surged through his veins, and the mysterious golden mark beneath his skin suddenly flared to life. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Bright golden energy erupted around his body, causing the ancient runes throughout the shrine to shine once again. Darius' calm expression finally changed. "So it begins." The ground shook violently. Ancient dragon statues surrounding the shrine suddenly cracked apart. Golden light poured from inside them, as though something buried for centuries had finally awakened. Ares had no control over what was happening. Strange memories flooded his mind. He saw endless skies filled with dragons of every color imaginable. He saw enormous temples standing among floating islands. Most terrifying of all, he saw himself, or someone who looked exactly like him, standing before thousands of dragons kneeling in absolute silence. The vision ended as quickly as it had begun. Ares dropped to one knee, gasping for air. Meanwhile, The invisible force holding the baby dragon vanished. The little creature immediately flew back beside Ares, protecting him while glaring at Darius. The general remained silent for several seconds before speaking again. "You truly don't remember." His voice sounded almost disappointed. "You are not simply carrying an ancient bloodline. Your soul itself has inherited memories that have been sealed away. That is why the dragons fear you and why others bow." Ares shook his head. "I don't understand any of this." "I know," Darius answered. "That is exactly why you are still alive." Outside the shrine, thunder suddenly echoed across the mountains. Dozens of dragon roars answered from distant valleys. One after another, ancient beasts hidden across the kingdom lifted their heads toward the eastern sky. Some had slept for centuries beneath frozen mountains. Others rested deep inside volcanic caves or forgotten forests. Regardless of where they were, every dragon sensed the same thing. The bloodline had awakened. Back inside the shrine, Darius slowly drew the long black sword hanging at his side. Dark energy spread across the blade like living shadows. "I had hoped to capture you alive," he admitted. "But after witnessing this awakening, I cannot risk allowing your memories to return." He raised the sword. At that exact moment, an enormous explosion tore through the shrine roof. Stone rained from above as a gigantic silver dragon crashed into the clearing outside. Its wings stretched wider than the entire shrine, and its roar shook the mountains. Standing proudly upon the dragon's back was an elderly man wearing weathered travel robes and carrying a long wooden staff. His sharp eyes locked onto Darius. "So," the old man said with a faint smile, "you're still causing trouble after all these years." For the first time since entering the shrine, General Darius frowned. "I wondered when you would appear. Master Orion." The old man jumped gracefully from the dragon's back and landed between Ares and Darius. He briefly glanced over his shoulder, smiling warmly at the frightened young servant. "Don't worry, Ares," he said calmly. "Your real journey starts today." The arrival of Master Orion changed the entire atmosphere of the battlefield. Only moments earlier, Ares and Lyra had been completely powerless before General Darius, but now even the ruthless commander seemed unusually cautious. The old man stood calmly with his wooden staff resting against his shoulder, his weathered robes fluttering gently in the mountain wind. Despite his simple appearance, there was an overwhelming presence surrounding him that made the air itself feel heavier. The enormous silver dragon behind him lowered its head respectfully, its brilliant blue eyes never leaving Darius for a single second. It was immediately clear that this was no ordinary dragon rider. Master Orion had earned the complete trust of one of the oldest dragons still living. Darius slowly lowered his sword, but did not return it to its sheath. "You always appear at the most inconvenient moments," he said with a cold smile. "I was beginning to think you had finally died." Orion chuckled softly. "Many people have hoped for that over the years. Unfortunately for them, I'm still here." The two men stared at each other in silence. Neither moved, yet invisible waves of magical energy collided between them, causing the cracked stone floor beneath their feet to tremble. Ares could feel the pressure growing stronger with every passing second. Even breathing became difficult. The baby dragon pressed close against his shoulder, its small body trembling as it watched the confrontation. Without another word, Darius suddenly attacked. His black sword flashed through the air with incredible speed, releasing a wave of dark energy powerful enough to split the shrine in half. Before it could reach anyone else, Orion casually tapped his wooden staff against the ground. A brilliant silver barrier instantly appeared, absorbing the attack as though it were nothing more than a gentle breeze. The collision created a blinding explosion of light that echoed across the surrounding mountains. The battle had begun. Darius moved with terrifying speed, disappearing and reappearing around Orion while launching countless attacks from impossible angles. Every strike carried enough force to destroy stone pillars and ancient statues. Yet Orion remained remarkably calm. Instead of matching speed with speed, he relied on perfect timing, deflecting each attack with graceful movements that looked almost effortless. Watching them fight felt less like witnessing a battle and more like watching two legendary masters performing an ancient dance that had been practiced for decades. While the two powerful warriors clashed, Orion's silver dragon joined the battle. The massive creature spread its enormous wings and unleashed a stream of shimmering frost that swept across the battlefield. Darius responded by raising his free hand, summoning a wall of black flames that collided with the icy breath. Fire and ice exploded together, covering the mountain with clouds of steam so thick that Ares could barely see anything around him. "Now," Orion shouted through the smoke. "Take Ares and leave." Lyra immediately understood. Although still injured from Darius' earlier attack, she forced herself to stand and grabbed Ares once again. "We have to go." Ares hesitated. "But he'll be fighting alone." Orion smiled without looking back. "I've survived worse than this. Your job isn't to help me. Your job is to survive." Realizing he would only become a burden, Ares finally nodded. Together with Lyra and the baby dragon, he ran deeper into the mountains while the sounds of the fierce battle echoed behind them. For several hours they followed narrow trails through steep cliffs and dense forests. Orion had told them to head east toward a place called the Valley of Echoes, where someone would be waiting for them. None of them knew exactly who that person was, but Ares had no better choice than to trust the mysterious old master. As they traveled, the baby dragon became noticeably more energetic. Instead of remaining on Ares' shoulder, it constantly flew ahead, exploring the path before returning to guide them. Occasionally, it stopped beside unusual plants or glowing stones, almost as though it recognized ancient landmarks hidden throughout the wilderness. Late that afternoon, they reached a peaceful mountain lake surrounded by towering cliffs. Crystal clear water reflected the bright blue sky above, creating a scene so beautiful that it almost made them forget the dangers chasing them. Lyra suggested resting for a short while since both of them were exhausted. Ares agreed. As they sat beside the lake, the baby dragon happily jumped into the water, splashing around like an ordinary young animal. Watching its playful behavior made Ares smile despite everything that had happened. For the first time since leaving the academy, he felt a small sense of peace. That peaceful moment did not last long. While washing his face in the lake, Ares noticed something strange beneath the surface. His reflection was changing. Instead of seeing his own face, he briefly saw the image of a young warrior wearing magnificent golden armor. Behind the warrior stood countless dragons stretching across the horizon. They all bowed their heads toward him. Ares blinked. The vision disappeared instantly. He stepped backward, breathing heavily. "What happened?" Lyra asked after noticing his frightened expression. I saw someone." "Who?" "I don't know." Before he could explain further, a gentle voice echoed across the lake. "You saw one of your forgotten memories." Both Ares and Lyra immediately turned toward the sound. Standing beneath the branches of an ancient tree was a young woman dressed in flowing white robes. Her long silver hair moved gently with the wind, and several colorful birds rested fearlessly upon her shoulders. Although she looked no older than 20, her calm eyes carried incredible wisdom. "I've been waiting for you," she said softly. "My name is Seraphine." She slowly walked toward them, smiling warmly at the baby dragon, which immediately flew over and happily circled around her. "You know him?" Ares asked in surprise. Seraphine nodded. "I knew his mother." Those words stunned everyone. "The dragon," Ares whispered, "has a mother?" "Of course," Seraphine replied with a gentle laugh. "Did you think legendary dragons simply appeared from nowhere?" She knelt beside the baby dragon, gently placing her hand on its head. "This little one belongs to one of the oldest bloodlines in existence. His parents sacrificed everything to protect his egg from the Shadow Order. For centuries they waited for the only person worthy of becoming his partner." She looked directly into Ares' eyes. "That person was always meant to be you." Before Ares could respond, the peaceful lake suddenly began trembling. Ripples spread rapidly across the water. Then, one after another, enormous shapes started rising from beneath the surface. Massive dragon heads slowly emerged from the lake, their ancient eyes glowing with different colors. There were blue dragons, emerald dragons, white dragons, and creatures unlike anything Ares had ever imagined. Instead of attacking, every single dragon lowered its head before him. The surrounding mountains echoed with deep, respectful roars as dozens of ancient dragons silently acknowledged Ares' presence. Lyra watched the breathtaking scene in complete disbelief. Only one question remained. Why would creatures feared by entire kingdoms bow before a servant who still knew almost nothing about his own past. Ares stood completely motionless as the ancient dragons surrounded the crystal-clear lake. The sight before him was unlike anything he had ever imagined possible. Massive dragons of every shape and color floated peacefully across the water, their glowing eyes fixed entirely on him. Some had brilliant sapphire scales that shimmered beneath the afternoon sunlight, while others possessed emerald wings wider than castle walls. A few older dragons carried countless scars across their bodies, silent reminders of battles fought centuries ago. Despite their overwhelming strength, every single one lowered its head respectfully. The deep rumble of their voices echoed through the mountains, not as a threat, but as a greeting that had waited generations to be spoken. Ares instinctively stepped backward, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. He looked over his shoulder at Lyra, hoping she would somehow explain what was happening, but she appeared just as shocked as he was. Seraphine smiled gently, watching the dragons with calm familiarity. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "If they wish to harm you, none of us would still be standing here. They have come because they recognize something that your own heart has not yet accepted." Ares looked down at his trembling hands. "I don't understand. Everyone keeps talking about my blood, my destiny, and forgotten memories. I don't even know who my parents really were." Seraphine slowly walked beside him and gazed across the peaceful lake. "That confusion is natural. The seal placed upon your memories was never meant to last forever. Every step you take, every battle you survive, weakens that seal a little more." One of the oldest dragons slowly moved closer to the shore. Its silver scales reflected the sunlight like polished mirrors, and long golden horns curved elegantly above its wise eyes. The enormous creature lowered its head until it was only a few feet away from Ares. The baby dragon chirped happily before flying onto the ancient dragon's nose. Instead of reacting with annoyance, the giant dragon gently closed its eyes, almost like a grandparent greeting a beloved grandchild. Ares cautiously reached out and placed one hand against the dragon's scales. The moment his fingers made contact, another wave of memories surged into his mind. He saw endless skies filled with dragons flying together in perfect harmony. Great cities floated among the clouds, connected by shining bridges of crystal. Humans and dragons lived side by side without fear or hatred. Children laughed as young dragons played around them. Towering temples reached toward the heavens, while brilliant banners bearing a golden dragon symbol fluttered in the wind. The world looked peaceful, prosperous, and completely different from the divided kingdoms Ares knew today. The vision suddenly changed. Darkness swallowed the skies. Black storms covered the horizon as terrifying shadow creatures poured into the world. Entire cities burned. Dragons roared in pain while armies fought desperately beneath falling mountains. A great war consumed everything. At the center of the battlefield stood a warrior surrounded by blinding golden light. Countless dragons fought beside him against an endless sea of darkness. Just before Ares could see the warrior's face clearly, the vision shattered like broken glass. He stumbled backward, breathing heavily. "What did you see?" Lyra asked, helping him steady himself. It felt real," Ares whispered. "A world where humans and dragons lived together. Then everything was destroyed." Seraphine nodded slowly. "Those are not dreams. They are echoes of history." She explained that thousands of years earlier, dragons and humans had shared a powerful alliance. Together, they built civilizations unlike anything the modern kingdoms could imagine. But greed, fear, and ambition eventually divided them. Certain human rulers desired complete control over dragon power. Ancient wars erupted, destroying both civilizations and forcing the surviving dragons into hiding. Over time, history became legend, and legends slowly became forgotten myths. The Shadow Order helped erase that history, Seraphine continued. They rewrote the truth generation after generation until nobody remembered what really happened. Ares listened silently, trying to absorb everything. The more he learned, the heavier the responsibility on his shoulders seemed to become. As the sun slowly began setting behind the mountains, the dragons surrounding the lake suddenly became restless. Several lifted their heads toward the western sky. Their peaceful expressions disappeared, replaced by visible concern. Even the baby dragon stopped playing and flew back onto Ares' shoulder. Seraphine's smile faded. They found us. Almost immediately, a loud explosion echoed across the valley. The mountain path leading toward the lake collapsed as dozens of dark figures appeared among the falling rocks. Shadow Order soldiers poured into the valley from every direction, led by heavily armored commanders riding terrifying black wyverns instead of true dragons. Unlike the noble creatures gathered around the lake, these beasts looked twisted and unnatural. Dark crystals had been embedded into their bodies, forcing them into painful obedience. One of the wyvern riders raised his weapon. There he is. Without hesitation, the invaders launched their attack. Arrows infused with dark magic filled the sky like a deadly storm. Ancient dragons immediately spread their massive wings, shielding Ares and the others. Several arrows shattered harmlessly against their scales, while others exploded into clouds of black smoke that poisoned nearby trees. The peaceful valley transformed into another battlefield within seconds. The oldest silver dragon released an earth-shaking roar. Its voice echoed across every mountain in the region. One after another, the ancient dragons answered. The sky darkened beneath hundreds of enormous wings as more dragons descended from hidden caves, distant cliffs, and cloud-covered peaks. For the first time in centuries, the ancient guardians had united. The Shadow Order commanders suddenly realized they had walked into something far more dangerous than expected. "What is this?" one of them shouted in disbelief. "Why are the guardian dragons protecting him?" Before anyone could answer, the silver dragon looked directly at Ares. Although it never spoke aloud, Ares somehow heard its voice clearly inside his mind. "Young heir, the time has come for your first lesson. A dragon's greatest strength is not its fire, but the heart of the one it chooses to trust." At that exact moment, the baby dragon landed in front of Ares. Golden light erupted from its tiny body. Its scales began glowing brighter and brighter. To everyone's astonishment, the little dragon started growing. Its wings expanded. Its claws became longer. Its body nearly doubled in size within seconds. The transformation had begun. Watching from the front lines, the Shadow Order commander slowly lowered his sword. His face turned pale. "No," he whispered. "It shouldn't be evolving this early." The commander immediately screamed a desperate order to every soldier in the valley. "Kill the boy now, before the dragon's awakening is complete." The Shadow Order commander's desperate shout echoed across the valley, and within seconds, every soldier shifted their attention toward Ares. Arrows, spears infused with dark magic, and waves of destructive energy were launched at him all at once. It was no longer simply a battle to capture him. They intended to end his life before the mysterious transformation of the baby dragon could be completed. Ares stood frozen for only a heartbeat before the ancient dragons surrounding the lake reacted. Massive wings unfolded like living shields, and walls of flame, ice, wind, and shimmering light collided with the incoming attacks. Explosions shook the valley one after another, sending clouds of dust and shattered rock high into the air. The peaceful sanctuary that had remained hidden for centuries had become the center of a war that would soon change the fate of the entire kingdom. The baby dragon floated in front of Ares, wrapped inside a brilliant golden cocoon of energy. Its body continued growing as glowing patterns spread across its scales. Every heartbeat released another wave of ancient magic that rippled through the valley. The older dragons watched silently, their eyes filled not with fear, but with hope. They had waited countless generations for this moment. Yet Seraphine understood the danger better than anyone. If the transformation was interrupted, both the dragon and Ares could lose their lives. She quickly turned toward Lyra. "We have to protect him," she said firmly. Lyra nodded without hesitation. Despite her injuries, she drew her sword once again and stepped in front of Ares. She knew she was nowhere near strong enough to stop an army, but after everything she had witnessed, there was no chance she would abandon him. The frightened servant she had once barely noticed had become someone willing to risk everything to protect others, even when he possessed almost no understanding of his own power. Somewhere along the journey, her respect had quietly turned into genuine trust. The Shadow Order commanders realized that ordinary soldiers would never break through the dragon's defenses. One of them raised a black crystal high into the air. Strange runes ignited across its surface before it exploded into thousands of dark fragments. A wave of unnatural energy swept through the battlefield. Several guardian dragons suddenly cried out in pain. Their wings trembled, and some were forced to land as the dark magic weakened their ancient strength. Seraphine's expression immediately changed. "They're using dragon suppression crystals," she warned. "Those relics were created during the ancient wars to weaken dragon blood." Seeing the protective dragons falter, enemy soldiers rushed forward once again. The battle became even more violent. Fire clashed with darkness while enormous dragons wrestled corrupted wyverns high above the valley. The sky flashed with explosions as magical attacks illuminated the mountains like constant lightning. Ancient trees crashed to the ground, and sections of the cliffs collapsed beneath the overwhelming force of the fighting. Ares desperately wanted to help, but he could only watch helplessly. Every person around him was risking their life because of him. His fists tightened as frustration and guilt built inside his heart. "There has to be something I can do," he whispered. Almost as if responding to his emotions, the mysterious golden mark beneath his skin began glowing again. This time the feeling was different. Instead of pain, he sensed countless voices calling softly from every direction. They were distant and ancient, like echoes carried across thousands of years. "Protect. Guide. Stand." The voices overlapped until Ares could no longer tell where one ended and another began. Suddenly, one clear voice rose above all the others. "Open your heart." The words echoed inside his mind. Without fully understanding why, Ares closed his eyes. The noise of the battlefield slowly faded away. For a brief moment, he found himself standing inside an endless golden space filled with floating lights. Before him stood the same armored warrior he had glimpsed in earlier visions. This time, however, the warrior's face remained hidden beneath a hood of brilliant light. "You seek strength," the mysterious figure said calmly. Ares nodded. "I don't want power for myself. I just want to protect the people risking everything for me." The warrior smiled. "Then you have already taken the first step." He extended one hand. "True power has never belonged to those who seek control. It answers those who choose responsibility." As soon as their hands touched, countless streams of golden light rushed into Ares' body. Back in the real world, his eyes suddenly opened. They now glowed with brilliant golden light. A powerful wave of energy erupted outward, sweeping across the battlefield. The dark magic poisoning the nearby dragons instantly weakened. Several wounded guardian dragons slowly stood once again, their strength returning. Even the dragon suppression crystals scattered around the valley began cracking before shattering into dust. The Shadow Order commander stared in horror. He purified the corruption. "No one should be able to do that." The ancient silver dragon looked proudly toward Ares. "So the blood remembers," it rumbled. Ares himself barely understood what had happened. He had not consciously cast a spell. The energy had simply flowed through him naturally, guided by instinct rather than knowledge. Yet even this small miracle came at a price. His vision blurred, his legs weakened, and he nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Lyra quickly caught him before he hit the ground. "You don't have to fight alone," she said softly. Before Ares could answer, an earth-shaking roar thundered across the valley. The golden cocoon surrounding the baby dragon exploded into thousands of glowing fragments. Everyone looked toward the center of the battlefield. The tiny hatchling was gone. In its place stood a magnificent young dragon, nearly 3 times its previous size. Its black and gold scales shone like polished armor beneath the setting sun. Long, elegant horns curved backward from its head, and enormous wings slowly unfolded, scattering sparkling golden feathers of light across the valley. Although still young compared to the ancient guardians, its presence alone caused every corrupted wyvern to cry out in fear. The transformed dragon turned toward Ares. For the first time since hatching, it spoke. Its voice echoed directly inside his mind. "My name is Zephyros." Ares stared in astonishment. "You can talk." The young dragon lowered its head affectionately. "From this day forward, your journey is mine, and my strength is yours." Before Ares could respond, the skies suddenly darkened once again. Far above the battlefield, swirling black clouds gathered unnaturally. A gigantic circular portal slowly opened among the storm clouds. An enormous claw covered in black scales began emerging from the portal. Every ancient dragon in the valley immediately looked upward. For the first time since the battle began, They showed genuine fear. A heavy silence swept across the valley as the enormous black claw continued emerging from the swirling portal above the battlefield. Moments earlier, the guardian dragons had fought fearlessly against the Shadow Order, but now even the oldest among them stood completely still. Their proud eyes, which had faced countless wars over thousands of years, reflected something Ares had never imagined seeing: fear. The massive silver dragon slowly stepped in front of Ares and Zephyros, spreading its enormous wings protectively. Every other guardian dragon followed its example, forming a living wall beneath the darkening sky. None of them attacked. They simply waited, as though they knew exactly what was about to appear. The portal widened with a deafening roar that echoed across every mountain in the region. Black lightning flashed through the swirling clouds while waves of corrupted magic poured into the valley. Trees withered within seconds. The once crystal-clear lake turned dark as ink, and the grass beneath everyone's feet began dying wherever the shadowy energy touched it. Even the Shadow Order soldiers instinctively retreated several steps. Whatever was coming through the portal was not under their control. General Darius arrived at the battlefield moments later, stepping calmly through the ranks of frightened soldiers. His clothes were torn from his earlier battle with Master Orion, yet he appeared almost completely unharmed. Looking toward the portal, he frowned slightly. "Fools," he muttered toward the Shadow Order commanders. "Who gave you permission to awaken that creature?" The commander lowered his head nervously. "Lord Varen ordered us to use every available method if the heir awakened the ancient dragons." Darius remained silent for a moment before shaking his head. "You have no idea what you have unleashed." Ares stared toward the sky as an enormous dragon slowly forced its way through the portal. Unlike the majestic guardian dragons surrounding the valley, this creature looked terrifying. Its scales were darker than midnight, cracked with glowing crimson veins that pulsed like burning lava beneath its skin. Jagged horns stretched backward like twisted blades, and its glowing red eyes carried endless hatred. Thick chains covered in ancient runes still hung from parts of its body, dragging behind it as though someone had once imprisoned the beast. Every beat of its gigantic wings sent violent storms racing across the mountains. Seraphine's face turned pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "The Shadow Dragon was sealed thousands of years ago." The ancient silver dragon lowered its head respectfully before speaking in a deep voice that everyone could hear. "His true name is Morveth. According to the oldest dragon legends, Morveth had once been one of the greatest dragon guardians. During the final years of the ancient war, however, he was consumed by forbidden shadow magic while trying to defeat an evil force threatening the world. Unable to free him from the corruption, the ancient Dragon Council had no choice but to seal him inside another dimension. Since then, countless generations believed the Shadow Dragon had become nothing more than a legend meant to frighten young dragon riders. Now the legend had returned. Morveth finally pulled himself completely through the portal. The moment his enormous body entered the world, the sky itself seemed to grow darker. He slowly looked across the valley until his crimson eyes settled upon Ares. For several long seconds, neither moved. Then the corrupted dragon released a roar so powerful that entire cliffs collapsed. The shockwave knocked soldiers, dragons, and shattered trees across the battlefield. Even Zephyros struggled to remain airborne against the overwhelming force. Ares fell to one knee, covering his ears as the deafening sound echoed through his entire body. Morveth opened his enormous mouth. To everyone's surprise, he spoke. "So," his deep voice rumbled like thunder, "the bloodline still survives." Every person on the battlefield froze. The Shadow Order commander smiled confidently, believing the ancient monster would immediately destroy Ares. Instead, Morveth ignored everyone else. His attention never left the young servant. "I remember your ancestor," the corrupted dragon continued. "He was the only human strong enough to face me, and the only one who showed mercy when he had every reason to strike." Ares slowly stood despite his trembling legs. "I don't know who you're talking about." Morveth studied him carefully. "No, you truly remember nothing." Before anyone could say another word, Lord Varen himself finally arrived. A massive black carriage pulled by armored wyverns descended from the clouds before stopping at the edge of the battlefield. The carriage door slowly opened, revealing a tall, elderly man dressed in elegant crimson robes embroidered with golden dragon symbols. Unlike Darius, whose strength came from battle experience, Varen radiated the cold confidence of someone who had manipulated kingdoms from the shadows for centuries. He calmly approached Morvith before bowing respectfully. "Great Shadow Dragon," he said, "the heir has awakened exactly as the prophecy foretold." Morvith did not even look at him. Instead, he continued watching Ares. Lord Varen's smile briefly disappeared. It was obvious that things were not unfolding as he had expected. Suddenly, Orion's silver dragon descended into the valley once again. Master Orion jumped onto the battlefield beside Ares, breathing heavily after his long fight with Darius. His robes were damaged, and fresh wounds covered one arm, but his determined expression remained unchanged. He looked directly at Morvith. "My old friend," Orion said quietly, "you don't have to remain their prisoner." Those unexpected words shocked everyone. Even Darius looked surprised. Morvith slowly turned his enormous head toward Orion. For the first time, the hatred burning inside the dragon's crimson eyes seemed to weaken slightly. "They still chain me," Morvith growled bitterly, glancing toward the ancient runes wrapped around his body. Orion nodded sadly. "I know." Ares looked back and forth between them. "You know each other?" Orion smiled faintly. "We fought together long before your kingdom even existed." Before anyone could ask another question, Lord Varen suddenly raised a strange black crystal high above his head. The crystal immediately began glowing with violent crimson light. Ancient chains covering Morvith's body tightened. The giant dragon roared in agony. His expression twisted with unbearable pain as the corruption inside him rapidly spread. "No!" Orion shouted. "Stop!" But it was already too late. The crystal had completely activated. Lord Varen laughed triumphantly. "If I cannot control the air," he pointed directly at Ares, "then I will use the Shadow Dragon to destroy him." Morvith's eyes, which had briefly shown traces of sanity, turned completely crimson once again. With an earth-shaking roar, the gigantic dragon folded his wings and charged directly toward Ares at unimaginable speed, while Zephyros instinctively leaped into the sky to intercept an enemy far larger and stronger than himself. The moment Morvith launched himself toward Ares, the entire valley shook beneath the force of his enormous wings. The corrupted dragon moved with terrifying speed despite his massive size, tearing through the sky like a living storm. Black flames poured from his mouth, burning everything they touched. Forests erupted into fire, cliffs crumbled into the lake below, and waves of dark energy spread across the battlefield. Every instinct told Ares to run, but before he could take a single step, Zephyros soared upward to meet the attack. Although he was still young and far smaller than Morvith, the golden dragon showed no hesitation. With a fearless roar, he unleashed a brilliant stream of golden fire that collided head-on with Morvith's black flames. The two powerful attacks crashed together in midair, creating an explosion so intense that the clouds themselves were blown apart. The shockwave swept across the valley, forcing dragons and soldiers alike to shield themselves. Even the ancient guardian dragon struggled to remain steady. Ares watched helplessly as Zephyros fought with everything he had, yet it quickly became obvious that the difference in strength was enormous. Morvith had survived countless ancient wars. Zephyros had only recently completed his first evolution. Despite his legendary bloodline, he simply lacked experience. Morvith slammed one enormous claw into Zephyros' side, sending the young dragon crashing into the mountainside. Huge boulders tumbled down the cliffs as Zephyros struggled to stand again. His golden scales were scratched and cracked in several places, but instead of retreating, he rose back into the sky with determined eyes. "I won't let him reach you," Zephyros' voice echoed inside Ares' mind. "You are my partner." Ares clenched his fists tightly. "No, we're partners." Ignoring Lyra's desperate attempts to stop him, Ares ran toward the battlefield. Every part of him screamed that he was making a terrible mistake, yet he could not stand by while everyone else sacrificed themselves for him. As he reached the center of the valley, the mysterious golden mark on his wrist began glowing once again. This time, however, the light spread much farther than before, climbing across his arm in the shape of ancient dragon runes. Master Orion noticed immediately. "The bond is evolving," he whispered. Seraphine turned toward him in surprise. So soon? Orion nodded. He has finally stopped running from his destiny. Above them, Morvith prepared another devastating attack. Black lightning gathered around his jaws as corrupted energy swirled throughout the sky. Before he could release it, Ares instinctively raised his hand. He had no idea what he was trying to do. He simply acted on instinct. Golden light burst from his palm. Instead of forming a destructive attack, the energy transformed into countless glowing chains that shot toward Morvith. The ancient dragon roared furiously as the golden chains wrapped around his body. To everyone's astonishment, the chains did not injure him. Instead, they tightened around the dark runes controlling him. Lord Varen's confident smile vanished. No, he immediately realized what was happening. The purification seal. The glowing chains began tearing away the corrupted magic surrounding Morvith. Wherever the golden light touched, the black energy dissolved into harmless sparks. For the first time in thousands of years, the Shadow Dragon's true blue eyes briefly returned. He looked directly at Ares. There was no hatred in them, only sadness. "My old friend," Morvith whispered, though he clearly was not speaking to Ares himself. The vision disappeared almost instantly. The crimson corruption surged back stronger than ever. Lord Varen laughed triumphantly while raising the black crystal even higher. "You are too weak. The seal cannot be broken until the crystal is destroyed." Master Orion finally understood. The crystal. Without hesitation, he mounted his silver dragon once again and flew directly toward Varen. Darius immediately intercepted him, their weapons colliding in another earth-shaking clash. The two legendary warriors disappeared into the storm-filled sky, continuing their unfinished duel while dragons battled all around them. On the ground, Lyra and Seraphine fought side by side against advancing Shadow Order soldiers. Despite their exhaustion, neither allowed a single enemy to approach Ares. Nearby, the ancient guardian dragons defended the valley entrance, preventing enemy reinforcements from joining the battle. Meanwhile, Ares struggled to maintain the golden chains binding Morvith. Every second drained more of his strength. His vision blurred, and blood slowly trickled from the corner of his mouth. The purification required far more power than his body could safely handle. Zephyros landed beside him. "You'll die if you continue," the young dragon warned. Ares shook his head. "If I stop, Morvith loses himself forever." The dragon looked at his partner with quiet admiration. Then, without asking permission, Zephyros gently pressed his forehead against Ares. A brilliant golden light instantly surrounded them both. Their souls connected more deeply than ever before. Memories, emotions, and strength flowed freely between dragon and rider. For a brief moment, Ares experienced life through Zephyros' eyes. He saw the centuries spent sleeping inside the legendary egg. He felt the loneliness of waiting for the right partner. Most importantly, he felt complete trust. Not because of prophecy, not because of blood, simply because Zephyros believed in him. The bond transformed. Golden wings of pure energy appeared behind Ares' back, lifting him high into the sky. Everyone on the battlefield stopped fighting. Even Morvith stared upward in disbelief. Ares floated above the valley surrounded by brilliant light. The golden chains strengthened dramatically. Cracks spread across the black crystal in Lord Varen's hands. "No!" Varen screamed. "This cannot happen." Another crack appeared, then another. Finally, the crystal exploded. A blinding flash illuminated the entire valley. The ancient chains binding Morvith shattered one after another. The corruption surrounding his body began peeling away like smoke carried by the wind. The enormous dragon closed his eyes. When he opened them again, both eyes were a calm sapphire blue. The Shadow Dragon had finally been freed. But before anyone could celebrate, a terrifying laugh echoed across the battlefield. Lord Varen slowly rose into the air, surrounded by swirling darkness. The destruction of the crystal had not weakened him. Instead, it had awakened something hidden inside his own body. Dark scales began spreading across his skin. Massive black wings burst from his back. His human form started transforming into something far more terrifying. Orion looked up in horror. "So that was your true plan all along." Varen smiled as his transformation continued. "I never intended to control the Shadow Dragon." He looked directly at Ares. "I intended to become something even greater." The battlefield fell into complete silence as Lord Varen's transformation continued. Moments earlier, everyone believed destroying the Black Crystal would end the conflict, but instead it revealed the terrifying truth hidden behind centuries of planning. Dark scales spread rapidly across Varen's body, covering his skin like living armor. His crimson robes tore apart as enormous black wings burst from his back, each one radiating waves of corrupted energy powerful enough to shake the surrounding mountains. Jagged horns slowly emerged from his forehead, and his eyes transformed into glowing pools of crimson light. Unlike Morveth, whose corruption had been forced upon him through ancient magic, Varen welcomed the darkness with a smile. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Every war, every assassination, every lie the Shadow Order had spread throughout history had been nothing more than pieces of a much larger plan. Master Orion stared at his old enemy with disbelief. "You sacrificed your own humanity," he said quietly. Varen laughed, his voice echoing unnaturally across the valley. "Humanity is weak. It fears death, grows old, and clings to hope. I abandoned those limits long ago. While kingdoms fought over land and dragons hid from the world, I searched for the one power capable of making me eternal." He slowly raised his hand, and streams of black energy gathered around him like violent storms. The ancient blood. Ares stepped forward despite his exhaustion. His clothes were torn, his body ached from the constant use of his mysterious powers, and golden energy still flickered around his arms after freeing Morveth from corruption. Yet he refused to retreat. Looking directly at Varen, he finally understood that running would never solve anything. As long as the Shadow Order existed, innocent people would continue suffering. "You destroyed countless lives," Ares said firmly. "You hunted me before I even knew who I was." Varen's expression remained completely calm. "I hunted possibility." He smiled coldly. "Your family stood in my way centuries ago. Your parents stood in my way 18 years ago. And now, you stand before me carrying the final piece I need." Without warning, Varen extended both hands toward the sky. Dark clouds immediately began spinning into a gigantic vortex above the valley. Ancient ruins hidden beneath the mountains suddenly awakened, glowing with crimson light. Long-forgotten magical circles carved into the earth activated one after another, stretching farther than anyone could see. Seraphine gasped in horror. The entire valley. She looked toward Orion. "It's one enormous ritual." Orion nodded grimly. "He never came here simply to capture Ares. He chose this place because the ancient dragon seals lie beneath these mountains." As the ritual activated, rivers of black energy flowed from underground toward Varen's body. The remaining Shadow Order soldiers immediately dropped to one knee, willingly offering their own life force to strengthen the spell. One by one, they dissolved into streams of darkness that disappeared into the swirling vortex overhead. It was horrifying to watch, yet none of them resisted. They believed their sacrifice would help create a new world under Varen's rule. Morveth slowly stepped beside Ares. Now completely freed from corruption, the ancient dragon looked far nobler than before. His once black scales gradually regained their original deep blue color, and the hatred that had filled his eyes was replaced by centuries of quiet sorrow. "I owe this world a debt," Morveth said. "I allowed myself to become a weapon once." He lowered his massive head toward Ares. "I will not make that mistake again." One after another, the guardian dragons moved into formation behind him. Dragons of fire, ice, wind, earth, lightning, healing, and countless other ancient bloodlines spread across the valley, forming the largest gathering of dragons seen in thousands of years. Zephyros proudly stood beside Ares, no longer looking like a frightened hatchling, but a young guardian ready to fight for the future. Master Orion landed nearby after finally forcing Darius to retreat from the battlefield. Although badly wounded, the old master still carried determination in his eyes. Darius escaped, he admitted. But Varen is the true threat. He looked directly at Ares. "This battle cannot be won by strength alone." Ares nodded. For the first time, he truly understood what everyone had been trying to teach him. Power without compassion had created monsters like Varen. Fear had divided humans and dragons for centuries. If he fought only for revenge, he would become no different from the enemies standing before him. The golden mark across his arm began shining once more. This time the light spread peacefully instead of violently. Ancient dragon symbols appeared across the battlefield, glowing beneath the feet of every guardian dragon. Their powers began flowing together naturally, connecting through Ares and Zephyros like countless streams joining a single river. The dragons were not giving him their strength. They were trusting him with it. High above the valley, Varen completed his transformation. His body had grown nearly twice its original size, surrounded by enormous wings of pure shadow. Dark lightning crackled endlessly around him, while dozens of floating crystals formed a crown above his head. He looked down at the united dragons and laughed. "So this is your answer?" He spread his wings wider. "Then watch your precious world disappear." With a single motion, he unleashed a massive sphere of corrupted energy toward the valley below. It descended like a falling star, carrying enough destructive force to erase everything in its path. Every dragon prepared to defend the valley. Ares closed his eyes. Instead of focusing on the approaching attack, he focused on the voices around him. He heard Zephyros' steady breathing. He heard Morvatha's calm determination. He heard the silent faith of every dragon that had chosen to stand beside him. When he opened his eyes again, they glowed brighter than ever before. He slowly raised one hand toward the falling sphere. A vast golden barrier erupted from the earth, stretching across the entire valley like the wings of an invisible dragon. The corrupted attack crashed against the barrier with unimaginable force. Mountains shook violently. Rivers changed course. Brilliant light and endless darkness collided in the sky, creating a storm visible for hundreds of miles. For several long seconds, neither force gave way. Then tiny cracks began appearing across the golden barrier. Ares gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of strength he possessed into holding it together. Blood streamed from his nose. His knees trembled. Zephyros cried out in concern, but Ares refused to lower his hand. "If this barrier falls," he whispered, "everyone dies." At that exact moment, the ancient dragon mark on his wrist suddenly expanded across his entire body, and a blinding pillar of golden light shot straight into the heavens. Far beyond the battlefield, hidden inside forgotten temples, buried ruins, and distant mountain shrines, ancient relics that had slept for thousands of years awakened all at once. The world itself had finally recognized the return of the lost bloodline. And somewhere beyond the clouds, a mysterious golden dragon opened its eyes for the very first time in countless centuries. A pillar of golden light pierced the heavens, shining so brightly that it illuminated every kingdom, mountain, forest, and sea across the continent. People stopped whatever they were doing and looked toward the distant horizon. Dragon riders paused their training. Villagers stepped out of their homes, and even rulers watching from their castles felt the overwhelming surge of ancient magic flowing through the world. Hidden temples that had remained sealed for thousands of years slowly opened their stone gates. Ancient runes carved into forgotten ruins glowed once more, while dragons sleeping deep beneath the earth awakened from centuries of silence. Something long believed to be lost had finally returned, and the world would never be the same again. Inside the Valley of Echoes, Ares stood at the center of the brilliant light, struggling to remain on his feet. Every ounce of strength he possessed was being poured into the massive golden barrier protecting everyone below. The barrier continued cracking under the enormous weight of Lord Varen's corrupted attack. Each new fracture sent painful waves through Ares' body. Blood stained his clothes, and his vision grew blurry, but he refused to lower his hand. He remembered every person who had believed in him, from the old caretaker who had raised him, to the headmaster who had secretly protected him, to Lyra, Seraphine, Orion, Morvath, Zephyros, and even the unknown warrior who had sacrificed his life in the forest. They had all risked everything because they believed he could choose a better future. He could not betray that faith. As the golden pillar reached the clouds, the mysterious dragon hidden beyond the heavens slowly descended. Unlike every dragon Ares had seen before, this magnificent creature seemed to be made entirely of golden light. Its scales shimmered like the morning sun, and every movement filled the sky with glowing feathers of energy. It was impossible to judge its true size because it stretched across the horizon itself. Yet despite its unimaginable power, its eyes were filled with peace rather than pride. Every guardian dragon immediately lowered its head in silent respect. Even Morvith, who had once stood among the strongest dragons in existence, bowed without hesitation. The great dragon looked down at Ares. Instead of speaking aloud, its voice echoed gently inside every living heart across the valley. The strength to protect has always been greater than the desire to rule. The words filled Ares with unexpected warmth. The unbearable pressure crushing his body suddenly became lighter. The cracks spreading across the golden barrier stopped growing. New streams of light flowed from every guardian dragon into the barrier, strengthening it further. Ares finally realized he had never been fighting alone. His power had always been connected to the trust of those around him. Lord Varen watched the scene with growing anger. Everything he had worked toward for centuries was slipping away. The ritual beneath the valley began collapsing as the ancient relics awakened across the world, breaking the dark seals that had secretly fed his power for generations. No, Varen roared. This world belongs to the strong. Dark energy exploded from his body as he gathered every remaining fragment of corrupted magic into one final attack. His enormous shadow wings spread wider than ever before, covering the sky in darkness. The vortex above the valley spun violently as black lightning crashed around him. If I cannot rule this world, he screamed, then I will destroy it. He hurled every ounce of his remaining power directly toward Ares. The entire valley trembled. At that same moment, Zephyros flew beside Ares and gently lowered his head. Our hearts are one, the young dragon said. There is nothing left to fear. Ares smiled. For the first time since this incredible journey had begun, he felt no doubt, no fear, no anger, only determination. He placed one hand on Zephyros' head. Golden light surrounded both of them. Their souls synchronized completely, and together they rose high above the battlefield. Humans, dragons, and even former enemies watched in silence as dragon and rider became surrounded by a pair of magnificent wings formed entirely from pure light. Ares raised both hands. The guardian dragons answered with a mighty roar that echoed throughout the continent. Their combined power gathered into a single beam of brilliant golden energy. It met Varen's darkness in the center of the sky. Light and shadow collided one final time. The explosion that followed shook the heavens themselves. For several endless moments, nothing could be seen except blinding light. Then, the darkness began to fade. Varen's corrupted magic shattered piece by piece. The shadow wings behind him dissolved into dust. Cracks spread across the dark scales covering his body. He stared at his own hands in disbelief. This is impossible. His voice trembled for the first time. I was chosen. Ares looked at him calmly. No, you made your own choices. The power you sought was never meant to belong to someone who ruled through fear. The final fragment of darkness surrounding Varen disappeared. Without the corrupted energy sustaining him, his transformed body slowly returned to its human form. His strength vanished. His wings faded. The ancient ritual beneath the valley collapsed completely. Silently, Lord Varen fell from the sky. Before he struck the ground, Morvith caught him gently with one enormous claw. The once corrupted dragon looked at the defeated man with quiet sadness. So much suffering, he whispered, for a dream built on fear. The battle was finally over. As the storm clouds disappeared, warm sunlight broke through the sky for the first time since the fighting had begun. The surviving dragons released joyful cries that echoed across the mountains. Soldiers who had been forced to serve the Shadow Order laid down their weapons, realizing they had been manipulated for years. Many of them chose to surrender peacefully instead of continuing a meaningless war. Master Orion smiled proudly as he looked toward Ares. You have done what none of us could. You ended a cycle that lasted thousands of years. Lyra walked toward Ares, tears of relief filling her eyes before she hugged him tightly. You really did it, she whispered. Ares laughed softly, still hardly believing everything that had happened. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Over the following weeks, news of the battle spread throughout every kingdom. The Dragon Academy was rebuilt, no longer as a place divided by wealth or noble blood, but as a school where anyone with courage and kindness could learn beside dragons. Old laws treating dragons as property were abolished, and new agreements recognized them as equal partners rather than servants. Humans and dragons slowly began rebuilding the trust that had been broken centuries earlier. Morvith chose to spend the rest of his life protecting the ancient valleys he had once unknowingly threatened. Seraphine became the guardian of the forgotten temples, preserving the true history so it would never again be erased. Master Orion returned to traveling the world, helping restore the balance between dragons and humans wherever conflict remained. Even Darius, after witnessing Varen's defeat, disappeared into the distant lands, leaving behind the endless battles that had defined his life. As for Ares, he refused every offer to become king or ruler. He believed true leadership came from serving others rather than standing above them. Together with Lyra and Zephyros, he continued traveling across the world, helping villages, protecting dragons, and ensuring that peace endured for future generations. Though many people called him the dragon god after witnessing the miracle in the Valley of Echoes, Ares always smiled and gently shook his head. "I'm not the dragon god," he would say. "I'm just someone who was given a chance to choose the right path." And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Destiny may open a door, blood may carry ancient power, and legends may shape the world. But in the end, a person's future is decided not by prophecy or birth, but by the choices they make every single day. With Zephyros soaring proudly through the endless blue sky and his friends walking beside him, Ares looked toward the horizon with hope, knowing that every ending was also the beginning of a brand new adventure.